Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the difference between static friction and kinetic friction. And so I'm going to use this block here. I'm going to push it forward. And all it's going to show down here is the force of friction. So that's all I'm looking at is force of friction. So here I go. I'm going to put a force on this, and it's not moving. So I'm going to push harder, and it's not moving, and push harder. It's not moving, and push harder. It's not moving, and it's still not moving. And push until all of a sudden it begins to move. And I'm going to just keep pushing at that level right there. And then we'll go ahead and stop it. Okay, so what do we have here? I'm going to do playback here. So here I'm going to play this back. And so what we have is at this point, I'm going to slow this down quite a bit. It's at this point I'm pushing, and you can see it here. I'm pushing, and I'm pushing it with just enough so it's not moving. So I'm going to begin to push right there and push more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And it's not moving. It's not moving. It's not moving. It's not moving. It's still not moving. I'm keep pushing harder and harder and harder. And then right at that point right there, it drops down. And so this is the difference between static friction and kinetic friction, because down here you can see that with the small crate that the static friction is going to be 50% of the weight, which turns out to be about 490. And so the friction, I'm going to push harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. Once I get to over 490, then all of a sudden it drops and it begins to move. And as it's moving there, the friction gets less, and it begins to move across the screen. And the reason the friction gets less is because the kinetic friction is only 30% of the weight. As you can see down here in the corner, hopefully you can see where my pointer is. Down here, I have static friction, which is the friction when it's not moving, of 50% of the weight. And then I have kinetic friction right here, which is the friction when it is moving, which is 30% of the weight. And there you have it, the difference between static friction. This is kinetic friction here, and that's the K for kinetic. And the other one is static friction, and that's the S for static. And that point right there is the maximum static friction. And that's the point, actually, which is this 50% that we're talking about right there, 50% of the weight. So there you have it, static friction versus kinetic friction.